Greetings from the city of brotherly love. I am Fernando Mendez, host of the Round Table. We invite you to listen to our discussion of the themes of the day when we bring you regional, national, and international news. Greetings, amigos de Úsala Radio. Les habla Fernando Méndez. Están escuchando La Mesa Redonda. Pastor Phil Fisher at the controls, and we have, as usual, local, national, and international news. Well, because it's one of the main headlines at this moment, I would like to start with the Taliban takeover of Afghanistan. One of the painful developments this week is the takeover of the whole country, except for a small part that is still under the control of the U.S., mostly because they have the airplanes and the people there that they need to get out of the country. Somehow a failure of intelligence. Now everybody's pointing fingers at each other, White House to intelligence to military, and so on. The fact is that it was a shameful scene, reminiscent of what happened at the end of the Vietnam era war, when we could see helicopters taken off from the roof of the American embassy and people trying to hold on to the bottom part of the helicopters and falling off. Well, we have even more tragic scenes here at the airport in Kabul. There are two parts of the airport. One is the civilian part, the other one is the military part. And this, at this point, it's a somewhat tragic event for Afghanis, especially for Afghanis who served the U.S., in the thousands, who were translators, interpreters, messengers for the U.S., for the military, and now they have no place to go. They literally they were left behind. It's one of those casualties of war, I suppose. But it's a bad time for our president, for Biden, because this could hurt. It's a crisis that I saw a headline that there are 3 ways in which this Afghanistan crisis can really hurt Biden. And just the visuals, I think, are enough. I would posit that it just doesn't look good for our troops to depart and to for the Taliban so quickly being able to take over the country. There was probably some hope without preparation on the part of the U.S. That they still had enough time. But now there are all kinds of reports from the American diplomats who wanted to start taking out Afghanis as early as June, early in the year, that many of them wanted to take their friends out of there, their relatives, the people who would be in jeopardy when the Taliban take charge. That's another thing. There are some reports that this is the Taliban 2.0, that they're more civilized, that they're more willing to deal in diplomacy, not so ready to commit acts of violence, but that's not what has happened. There's a scene of a central hotel in Kabul where the reporter says a few days ago there were military guards outside the hotel, and now the Taliban have come in. They demanded food. Somebody wanted room service. There was no food available because the Taliban took it all. And now that instead of the military guards outside, there is Taliban outside with their guns. And a very salient aspect of the Taliban taking over this country, no women anywhere in sight. So we know how they feel about women, and we know that they will pay for any opposition. They will bear the brunt of this taking over of the Taliban, who will apply strict laws of Sharia, very conservative, very radical laws that give women no rights. So we have a tremendous crisis there in terms of the people we left behind who served the US interest, and in terms of women who have been abandoned, who were promised that they will have careers, they will have an education, they will have a decent future. So that's gone for them. So we'll probably follow this. We'll follow the developments in Afghanistan. And we'll try to stay up to date on that. But it certainly is just from the information that has been published, from what I know, from a few articles that we have read regarding the politics, regarding the effects of their takeover, we can see that this is tragic for Afghanistan. The other point of this crisis is whether or not Biden was right to take our troops out of there. There are all kinds of arguments. It's a very complex issue. There are no easy answers. And certainly, as far as the politics of the whole thing, no easy answers. No matter when, whether 2, 3 years ago, 5 years ago, now, 5 years into the future, no matter when, the US departure from Afghanistan will be painful for their women, period. It will be painful for many of the people left behind who, for whatever reason, served the US military and in many other ways, and now they are left behind. It's one of those things. It's a country in flux right now. We don't understand exactly what Biden was thinking, but he's doubled down on his promise to remove troops from Afghanistan. The problem for many skeptics, for many historians who see this as a bad move, is that nobody was willing to do that at different times and for different reasons. Obama and Trump, and more recently, they couldn't or wouldn't do it. Biden promised to do it, and he did it. And again, no matter when it's done, no matter how it's done, it's going to be painful for the people left behind. We'll follow these developments because there's we can be certain of one thing: there's more coming. There's can't wait for the other shoe to drop, because the Taliban, we can be certain that they have not changed that drastically. We can be certain that they intend to impose their way of thinking, and it's a shame because in many ways that society had made great advances as far as women is concerned, for instance. But it's all lost now. And what will happen from now on, we have no idea. One thing we can almost for sure know, that all these women are hurt. There's no education for them. There's no hope for the ones who were already trained and hoping to have a career. young girls who will be married off because that's the only role that that mentality sees for women. That is a total shame, wasting the talent, the intelligence, the efforts of millions of women. So, well, let's see what happens, because it's raw right now. The videos are disturbing of people hanging onto departing airplanes and just falling off onto the pavement, onto the tarmac. So those are horrible pictures that will live with Biden, because it happened during his watch. Will follow him for a long time. So we're going to take a brief pause here in USALA Radio. Les habla Fernando Méndez. Pastor Phil at the control. Regresamos en un momento.
Once there was a boy who did the same thing again and again. One day, he was told he had autism. He got help and slowly learned how to live with it better.
Early intervention can make a lifetime of difference. Learn the signs at autismspeaks.org.
Señores oyentes de USALA Radio, estamos aquí en su programa La Mesa Redonda. Les habla Fernando Méndez, Pastor Phil at the control. Well, most of the news today are coming from outside the country. Usually we try to balance them with state, regional news. We do have some of those, but it's mostly coming from outside the country, from Haiti to Afghanistan to Latin America, where there are so many other problems there with some of these nations that went with the Marxist plan to govern, Venezuela and Nicaragua among them. And so, as usual, what the dictators try to do is squash the press. Remember, the press is the enemy of the people. That was Mr. Trump's main objection to any coverage of who he was and what he did. One thing during the Trump years was the count kept by the Washington Post of the number of lies, distortions, exaggerations from Mr. Trump that began. Didn't begin there, but that's, we could sort of mark one beginning there, is exaggerating the number of people at his inauguration. He claimed that there was a record number, and then anyway, we have video that showed that it was not nearly what he claimed. And so that's only one, and then there were at one point 30,000 lies, distortions, exaggerations. Remember that the pace picked up in the middle of 2020. The count was only up to about 18,000 or so. After the November 3rd election, the speed of the lies, distortion, exaggerations really picked up. And they were trying to sell the big lie. Anyway, we have other worries right now. Some of them, I mean, we should be grateful to Trump that he promoted the vaccine design and so on, but he didn't do anything with it. He had no plans. He had no plans to distribute it. Anyway, but we're going right now undergoing a second or third wave of this COVID virus. 3 teachers in Florida's second largest school district have died from COVID-19 within 2 days of each other. So according to a union official, the deaths come just days before Broward County schools are due to reopen on August 18th, which is today. Florida's Republican governor has threatened to withhold pay from school leaders who require masks for pupils. School virus protocols have become a subject of fierce debate as the Delta variant spreads in the US. Broward Teachers Union President Anna Fosco initially said 4 teachers had died, but the union clarified later on Friday that only 2 were teachers. A third was a teaching assistant, and a fourth was a graduate. The union said they had died from COVID-19 related complications. They also said 3 of them were unvaccinated. None had been inside a school building recently. So, the irony, because that's the place, Florida, where the virus is growing and where the governor has declared his opposition to mask mandates, which would help to control the virus, the spread of the virus. The other place where a governor has also attacked the scientists, attacked the desire to control the virus by imposing a mask mandate, Texas. Man who was opposed to the vaccine, was opposed to the masks, opposed to everything that made sense. Texas Governor Abbott now tested positive for COVID-19. The governor participated in an event with lots of people not wearing masks, because obviously he believes they are not necessary. People around him didn't wear them. He is one of the governors opposing the mask mandate. He is in a quarantine now, and Texas has a humanitarian crisis. Their hospitals are full, and people remain unvaccinated, many people. It's hard to understand the logic of these governors attacking the science, attacking the logic of how to fight the virus. So this virus is not going away. It has been found in many other countries right now, the variant, and India has a classified new variant of COVID-19 identified in Europe as a variant of concern. It's too early to tell whether it poses a significant threat. India's health ministry says studies showed that the so-called Delta Plus variant, also known as AY1, spreads more easily, binds more easily to lung cells, and is potentially resistant to monoclonal antibody therapy, a potent intravenous infusion of antibodies to neutralize the virus. That's what Mr. Trump received. Interferon, I think that's what it is. Yeah, and then he claimed to be a Superman. Remember, he climbed the steps and removed his mask because masks are not necessary. That's what he said. But he had the vaccine. He had the vaccine. He also had COVID. But he was rescued by the best medicine available, in the best hospital available. Man with no conscience, man with no ethics, most unprincipled leader we ever had. And he claimed to be, what was it he claimed to be? A genius. Yeah, he claimed to be, I forgot the exact term, but it was like stable genius. Yeah, stable genius. Yeah, so this stable genius is what got us into more trouble. If you want to remember what was happening, remember that interview, telephone interview, Bob Woodward and his other revelations about how he knew what's coming. This variant is related to Delta, an existing variant of concern, which was first identified in India last year, and is thought to have driven the deadly second wave of infections in India. The health ministry says Delta Plus variant, first found in India in April, has been detected in around 40 samples from 6 districts in 3 states, Maharashtra, Kerala, and Madhya Pradesh. At least 16 of these samples were found in Maharashtra, one of the states hardest hit by the pandemic. Delta Plus, and this is what is important for us, has also been found in 9 other countries: USA, United Kingdom, Portugal, Switzerland, Japan, Poland, Nepal, Russia, and China, compared to the original highly contagious Delta strain, which was now spread to 80 countries. But it's coming, and okay, this is where it's unfortunate that we lost so much time and money because it affected our economy. That so many people lost their jobs, and we were feeling better for a very short time there. Maybe a month ago, we were thinking we licked this virus. We have a chance now to go back to normal, and here we are. We're not going back to normal. It's picking up speed in so many states, and what is the reason for that? The unvaccinated people, because I don't know. I will ask it again. What is your religion that would impede you to save your life by getting a vaccine? If that's religion, then you should change. Much respect for your religious principles. I think that saving your life will be in any religion. Whatever God you worship, he will say you have a duty to love yourself and love and save your life. If your religion doesn't do that, I don't know what good it is. It's very sad that this whole virus, plague, pandemic has turned into a political issue. The virus, we know, has no allegiance to any party. It doesn't know ethnic or political differences. It doesn't know religion, doesn't know whatever God you worship. The virus doesn't care. So why? I don't understand. And you know, I do see this Governor Abbott testing positive for COVID. I see that as a bit of punishment for his resistance to mask mandate. That would benefit all the students going back to school, as it would also benefit all the students going back to school in Florida and across the country. But that's, I don't know, what mentality? Who are they following? Who are these people following? Now we have another problem. US-Mexico border migrant detention levels reached 21-year high. The number of migrants detained at the US-Mexico border in July exceeded 200,000 for the first time in 21 years, according to government information. Why are more people coming here during this crisis? Think about that. We have the spread of COVID. We have a variant that is growing quickly. We are not even able to take care of all our citizens because many hospitals are at full capacity. And they have had to create sort of outdoor areas in these hospitals in order to take in more patients. We don't have enough equipment. Many of these doctors and hospitals are struggling. Um, so, in the meantime, more people are coming to this country, to the border. Uh, Detention levels at a 21-year high. So, what that should tell us is that the crisis caused by COVID, the health crisis, the economic crisis, the political crisis, has to be worse elsewhere. If they want to come to this country, because Venezuela, Nicaragua, Central America, many of these places in South America, including Brazil, they have a bigger crisis than we have with COVID, political crisis, economic crisis. That's why people are coming to this country. Bueno, señores oyentes, vamos a tomar otra breve pausa, another brief pause here in Úsala Radio. Les habla Fernando Méndez. Pastor Phil at the controls will return in 1 minute. Señores oyentes de Úsala Radio, estamos aquí de nuevo con su programa La Mesa Redonda, The Round Table. Les habla Fernando Méndez. Pastor Phil at the controls. And even though most of the news I have today are from out of this country, we do have a couple of things from city and state. And one of the things that they mentioned here, I'm not going to spend time on it because I think this needs in-depth study, commentary. City and state reached out to some experts on critical race theory, CRT, I'm sure you have heard about it, to help describe what it is, how it relates to education, and the political impacts of policies banning certain teachings. Critical race theory. Sort of a new term. It's caught fire. I have to get more information before I start discussing this. After Governor Tom Wolf vetoed doomed election reforms earlier this summer, 2 state senators are introducing a bipartisan bill that leaves out some of the more controversial provisions that sank the original bill. So, one of those things. But it will not go away. 2 months after a panel of lawmakers released a report on election integrity, the Republican and Democratic heads of Senate Committee with Election Oversight are putting its recommendations into action, according to the Pennsylvania Capital Star report. Elected officials, advocacy groups, and transit agencies are already dreaming about items ranging from road and bridge repairs to airport upgrades, expanded broadband internet access, and public transportation that could result from the US Senate $1 trillion infrastructure package. It's a report from the Philadelphia Inquirer. So we want to see what happens with this $1 trillion infusion into our economy. There's some items you find on the internet about how our money will disappear. So that there's a plot by the people who know more about how we build wealth and where the money is from and where it's going. And there's all these rumors that the bills that we see. We already saw one change during the Nixon years. I remember that clearly. It was puzzling to an attempt to understand what Nixon did. I still don't know what it meant, but I'm sure the effects are being felt now. He removed us from the gold standard. In other words, before that, if your currency said this guarantees that you can pick up, 1/10 of an ounce of gold, that the state has to give you the money, has to give you the gold. But he took us off the gold standard, and it caused panic for a while. But in the long run, look, here we are. No gold to back up all the $1 trillion that are floating around the world. And because they say that the possibility that this $1 trillion floating around the world, that they will lose all their value, and that the machinations of the people on Wall Street, bankers and government officials to do something about our currency will leave us all holding the bag. And I don't quite understand what it is, but I'm intrigued. I have to take a look at that, because it could be just more than just another crazy rumor. There are thousands of them every day. But this one sort of worries me, because there are some serious people saying that this is a distinct possibility. Something will happen to our currency. And then all the money you have stashed under your mattress will be worthless. It will be paper with no value. I think that would worry me if that's anything that's really happening. Big deal. So in the previous segment, I was talking about how some countries like Nicaragua and Venezuela and other people are suffering because of COVID, and their economies have collapsed, and et cetera, et cetera. We know about Venezuela for sure, how you cannot find anything in the country that used to be one of the richest countries in Latin America. They have nothing now. And how their economic necessity has forced many Venezuelans to come to this country and to be exiled into other countries. There's more than 1 million of them in Colombia alone. So the things that they do, these dictators, in order to sort of keep control, is they keep control of the information. The Chinese are masters of that, the Russians too, depriving their subjects of valuable knowledge about what's going on, what they are doing, and so on. But that's how you maintain autocracies and dictatorships. So, what is happening in Cuba? Cuba tightens control of internet after there were some marches and protestation in Cuba. The Cuban government has introduced new regulations on the use of social media and the internet, which critics say are aimed at stifling dissent. Well, really big news, huh? The decrees were published in the wake of the largest anti-government protests to sweep through the communist-run island in decades. People use social media to share footage of the demonstrations and galvanize supporters. The decrees make inciting acts that, after public order, the crimes against the public order, they make that into a crime. They also order internet providers to cut access to those who spread fake news or hurt the image of the state. Okay, really? How do you could further hurt the image of an incompetent dictatorship that has kept people in poverty, that has kept your country isolated, that has no freedom of the press, no freedom of speech? You cannot even leave the country and return freely. How could you further hurt that image? What kind of image? which is already soiled. Anyway, they were published in the Gaceta Oficial newspaper just over a month after thousands of Cubans took to the streets in a rare show of anger with the communist government. And that is rare in Cuba, actually, to see people marching, demonstrating against the government. It's not, Cuba is not one of those places where there's a lot of that happening. They have been contented slaves ever since 1968, 69. Is it 68, 69? No, 58, 59, when Mr. Castro came down from the Sierra Madre to take over the government. 1958, 59, 60. Remember, Kennedy was in power, and Kennedy didn't support the uprising, didn't support with an air force, and it failed. Bay of Pigs, Bahia de Cochinos. So every one of our governments has had some big issue to deal with, and that was one for Mr. Kennedy, and so was the Bay of Pigs, and then the Meso crisis. Two things that marked his presidency. One good thing, and I have to mention it here, his desire to help the American continent with the Alliance for Progress that gave in $1960, it gave $20 billion to Latin America for schools and infrastructure. We haven't seen anything like that ever since. So that's what, 60 years ago? And I don't know, maybe Mr. Biden will find some money to give to Latin America. I doubt it. But certainly from the $1 trillion that we have available, maybe there's a little bit for Latin America. The protestations in Cuba, which started in the small town of San Antonio de los Baños, seem to have no formal organizer, but appear to have been convened through an online community forum. And that's a concern of the Cuban government, that this was internet, organized on the internet, and that's why they have curtailed communication with Cuban people. They don't want them to know anything that's going on. They don't want Cubans to see how other Cubans have found the guts to complain about a government that doesn't do what a government is supposed to do for its people: serve the people, help the people, unite the people. It's not enough that Cuba became the best educated society, at least literacy anyway. But to what point? I don't know. This uprising in Cuba spread quickly through the country after a live broadcast on Facebook of people attending an impromptu march in San Antonio was widely shared. However, Cuba's telecommunications network remains under the control of the state, and in the hours and days following the protest, users found they could not access Facebook, WhatsApp, Instagram, or Telegram. So, in other words, they're isolated as far as news, information. And that's one thing that governments of that ilk don't want people to have: information, especially information that contradicts their assertions, whatever they are saying about anything. COVID, poverty, can't believe them because they don't want to tell you the truth. Speaking of the truth, so we're going to find out, eventually we'll find out, why the decision to leave Afghanistan was taken now at this point. Is one thing that will be investigated. Another thing that is being investigated, and we won't leave it alone because we want to find out what really happened on January 6, 2021, with the insurrectionists invading the capital of the United States. According to some Republicans, it was a peaceful tourist march through the capital. Tourist visit with hugs and kisses, according to Donald Trump. We will know what really happened. We will know because people defending the Capitol died, and many of the people who defended the Capitol are experiencing the after effects, the PTSD, post-traumatic disorders. And so we need to know. We need to know. We need to have it on the record. We need to clearly know what happened from A to Z. We need to know who did what, when, how was it organized, what are the consequences, because we cannot leave that up in the air. Bueno, señores oyentes de Úsala Radio, vamos a tomar otra pausa breve. A brief break here in Úsala Radio. We'll come back in a minute. Les habla Fernando Méndez. Pastor Phil at the controls. No se vayan. Greetings from the city of brotherly love. I am Fernando Méndez, host of the Round Table. We invite you to listen to our discussion of the themes of the day when we bring you regional, national, and international news. Bueno, señores oyentes de Úsala Radio, estamos aquí de nuevo con su programa La Mesa Redonda. Les habla Fernando Méndez, Pastor Phil at the controls, and we have other things from 1440 news. That actually they start with the whole Taliban control in this segment. I am sure that we're going to hear about this Taliban takeover. We're going to hear a lot of over the next few days because it's surprising how quickly Taliban took control, but not unexpected. The Taliban cemented their control over Afghanistan while attempting to establish the legitimacy of their rule in the country. A representative for the group held a news conference promising amnesty for citizens who aided Western efforts and to allow women to participate in society within the confines of the Taliban interpretation of Islamic law. Many remained skeptical about the group's claims of moderation. Yeah, count me in. I saw how they acted before, and I know their mentality is not going to change. It really is a sad development for women, especially. As the Taliban made the announcements, U.S. troops worked to restore order at the Kabul airport to resume evacuations. Diplomatic staff and a number of U.S. citizens remain in the country, but Afghan citizens seeking to leave were reportedly attacked and prevented entry at Taliban checkpoints surrounding the airport. Oh, the U.S. is not in charge, in control of the venues leading to the airport. In related news, Inspector General's report on lessons learned from the 2-decade mission in the country was released yesterday, citing failures ranging from uncoordinated operations to misunderstanding cultural context. Uncoordinated operations and misunderstanding cultural content. One thing for sure, I saw a report, MSNBC, I believe, I don't remember the name of the reporter, riding a bicycle through the a base that the U.S. had just left with nothing, no protection there, nothing to stop anybody from coming in. They just left the base and the equipment, some equipment behind, and especially the structure. They left that. It's an airport. It's a place where they the Taliban could create their own headquarters and was left intact for them to come in and say, wow, welcome home. Here you are. I don't know. It's one of the things I have to wonder. There are other concerns right now with this COVID-19 and the growth in this country that of this virus that we thought we had dealt with. So now the government is offering or promising to have booster shots. And one of the items in the news was apparently Governor Abbott, that imbecile governor who refused to promote the use of masks, that he received a booster shot. That'd be really more than ironic. There's another name for that. I don't know what it is. US health officials are likely this week to recommend COVID-19 booster shots for those previously vaccinated, according to reports. The guidance suggests the extra shot be administered 8 months after full vaccination. Okay, entonces, para nuestro público, se está sugiriendo que usted use una vacuna adicional, aunque ya se vacunó anteriormente, si usted recibió las dos vacunas de Pfizer o Moderna, que hay una vacuna, habrá una vacuna disponible, que es lo que llaman un booster shot, para que usted averigüe si usted califica para eso, porque hay muchas personas que están ahorita en peligro, su salud está en peligro, especialmente ciudadanos que tienen la salud ya comprometida y que otros de cierta edad que debían tener esta vacuna adicional. The recommendation would come amid concerns over the emergence of more transmissible variants. Así que hay una variante que es más fácil transmitir, se llama Delta, entonces es más peligrosa, se comunica más rápidamente. Así que, por favor, si usted tiene la oportunidad de averiguar de qué se trata, aproveche y proteja a su familia, proteja a los hijos, los padres. So, common concerns of an emergency of more transmissible variants. Scientists have noted an mRNA vaccines, like those from Moderna and Pfizer-BioNTech, carry a genetic blueprint instructing the body to replicate the virus's protein spike, instructions that can be quickly tweaked to match different variants. So the most effective vaccines then are from Moderna, Pfizer, and BioNTech. It doesn't mean that the other vaccines don't work. It's just a particular variant that can be dealt with these vaccines. In related news, New York City vaccine mandate kicked in with proof of inoculation required to enter restaurants, bars, gyms, and other indoor venues. Businesses have until September 13 to begin enforcing the rules. Elsewhere, Chicago announced an indoor mask mandate regardless of vaccination status beginning Friday. And then the news about the Texas governor, Abbott. So he's one lucky idiot if he got hit with COVID and survived, because he's someone who, if there's any ill effects from COVID, he deserves to get them. So anyway, so we're reaching the end of another broadcast of the Round Table. And the news from Haiti, more than 2,000, or close to 2,000 people have died. And the fate of Haiti, one of the poorest nations on earth, certainly one of the poorest in Latin America. And to be hit by COVID, to be hit by a very serious earthquake, and then a hurricane. So we sympathize with our people in Haiti, wish them the best, and I hope the US and other governments are rushing to their aid. It's one of those confluence of events that create a big tragedy for Haiti. In the meantime, as we are quickly approaching the end of summer, we're going to see what happens with our vaccines. So if you have an opportunity, if you have not been vaccinated, please, you protect yourself and you protect us. You protect the people around you, the citizens. We need to deal with this virus. We need to put an end to this virus, and only by getting a vaccination will we be able to do it. In the meantime, don't forget to use masks and continue using whatever it means to kill the germs. So, amigos, hemos llegado al final de otra edición de La Mesa Redonda. Se despide Fernando Méndez, Pastor Phil at the controls. Hasta la próxima.